Hello everyone, and welcome back to the BWN podcast. Now, today, I'm, when we look back on season 1 and what happened in the previous season, there was a lot that was talked about at the time about having it being a very heavy student focus and having a lot of students on board, and primarily with a lot of the audience who were watching it, people who a lot of people already knew. Whenever lecturers came on, a lot of people, feedback anyway, face to face, is that it was sort of very refreshing to have not just lecturers but just adults in general. Obviously, of course, we are, but you get my point. People with a lot more experience in various different areas and different kinds of creativity, bringing them on to give their insight on various different things. We are going to continue that trend once again today. Today, I'm joined by Fee Walker. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you for having me today.
No, it's nice for you to be here. So today we're going to talk about something that we have talked a fair bit about sound on this podcast, but we're going to switch it up a little bit today in that sort of domain and talk specifically about music. Obviously, from what I gather, you've got a fair amount of experience in that arena.
Yeah, I've been doing this for over 40 years. Yeah. I started at the age of 8, so yes. Music has been my life, really.
Then maybe that's a way in. So, right off the bat there, what was the thing that sort of attracted you to it in the first place, would you say?
That's actually a really complicated question, and something probably with maturity and more self-awareness, I've become aware of why I went into music more. But the initial thing was, believe it or not, I started playing recorder at the age of 3. I found my mum's old recorder and how to play. And I'm dyslexic, so I wasn't particularly good at reading. But having an instruction manual and going through that, I was actually really quite good at it from a very young age. And so music has always been a part of my life in terms of then taking up my major instrument. I'm a multi-instrumentalist, but singing is the main one. Really, I knew from the age of 8 that that's what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I was singing in school, but there was just something inside me. It's about communication. Singing is, I know we have text involved, and so we're communicating sort of ideas and emotions. But it felt for me the one place where I truly had a voice.
Yeah.
And I still remain with that even today. Is that's where I feel complete when I'm singing. Yes.
So in regards to what it is you do professionally in music and that kind of space, what is it exactly that you would say you would classify yourself to do, like in the different areas?
Technically, I've broken it down into 3 areas. There's me as a performer. Mm-hmm. As a singer, as an instrumentalist. So there's that side, the performance side, which I did a lot more of sort of pre-parenting, but still do, and in many genres. I haven't done classical since 2011 because I am actually classically trained as a singer, and sort of do more jazz. Mm-hmm. I'm also in a funk and soul band, which is quite lovely, horn section as well, so it's that's pretty lovely for me to sing. But then we've got the educator. Now the educator it's interesting. That's like spinning lots of plates all the time, because that can be private practice where I'm a singing teacher, but it can also mean going out into the community and doing community projects or working with theatres. So it's sort of very much out there. And also, I'm a trained musical director, so it may be doing that kind of thing. That's more the education side of things.
Yeah.
And then the third branch really that I see is composing, and that is composing my own music or composing for other people.
Yeah.
It
is one of those areas you would say is kind of the main sort of, what would you say, there's a sort of a primary calling of the 3 to you?
Yes, as an educator, that probably now is my biggest thing, because actually it's nice to give back. It's about the hits that we get in our brain while we're doing it. When I'm singing, I'm on stage, obviously I get a healthy hit of hormones, chemicals in my brain, which is quite addictive, really. It's no different to the release if we were on illicit drugs, for example.
Yeah.
But doing it and performing, and once you get over sort of performance anxiety, actually using that and getting that feed is lovely. But I also get that same hit when I'm in an education setting. And because I'm teaching far more people, I get more of a hit. So it's actually quite addictive. But it's this thing of giving forward all the time. It's not that it's about me. It's about what other people are achieving.
So it's not only seeing that spark in yourself when you're on stage, but in even more so as an educator, because you're seeing that spark in other people.
Absolutely.
It's seeing it as much as experiencing it. It's
Yes.
the same thing.
Absolutely, yes. And I love it, the fact that I get to watch people grow within themselves and achieve things that they didn't think was actually possible. And that makes it sound like, you know, particularly in my private practice, that people are coming in because they want to be singers. Actually, that's generally not the case. Yes, I have professionals, but for the most part, particularly with, say, teenagers, it's about gaining confidence to be able to go on in life, because there are so many situations where people need to have confidence, and the thing that they need to use is their voice. For example, just interviews, or if you think about going down the academic route, presentations, all that kind of thing. In a work-based situation, there are lots of professions where people are orators naturally, like lecturers or in the police or that kind of thing, and they're using their voice all the time. So confidence in knowing that we can use our voice in a particular way is really, really important.
Switching gears to the third leg of which you talked about, with sort of privately composing, that sort of thing, I imagine that's a very different feeling, because if you've got that sort of spark within yourself and spark within other people, it's a very, at least what I've found with it, but I obviously, if you've got a different experience, it does seem a lot more sort of isolated in your own head when you're composing. Like, you know, a sort of, it seems, to me anyway, when I've done it, it seems it's a very kind of in your own head kind of space. Is it? Do you find it's a different thing as well?
Well, there's two ways, really. If I'm composing for myself, actually, I have complete creative control over what I'm doing. So I can get completely lost in what I want to.
Yep.
And that's absolutely wonderful. When it's for a client, on the other hand, I'm composing for something which has quite strict parameters. And I found that interesting in the amount of, say, depending on how it's being used. I did an education project, and I got to work with the students who were going to be performing it, how much information they needed in the music for them to be able to use it, for example. So it is, and working with a client, you have to also not only take on board what they kind of visualise, but maybe take them by the hand and take them down a route that they hadn't anticipated on. Yeah. Because you, as a composer, know that's the right way to go. Yeah. So it's always about balancing that off and balancing deadlines as well. You know, I have the freedom when it's my own stuff to take as much time as I want. When it's for a client, there is a deadline, and a lot of the times they kind of think that you can just pull it out of the hat in a few hours, and that's not the way music composition works at all. You'll know yourself. A lot of the time we need to ruminate over where we want to take that music. Yeah.
I almost find that there's it does marry itself. I don't know if you have any experience with this particularly, but I'd find it does marry itself similar to just normal writing, in that it's like thinking, okay, I'm going to have this screenplay done. You can, of course, put pressure on yourself to finish it for a deadline, but coming up with an organic story like that, sometimes you need that spark. The same, I feel, with music, same as fictional writing.
Absolutely, and there are a lot of people and research out there on things like the creative process, for example, where some sort of, let's say there are 3 things that we have to do, or 5 areas that we go through, or 4, it doesn't really matter. It boils down to, yes, this is an idea, but then we have to almost have time to sit with that idea for it to then gain the spark of, yeah, I now know what I'm going to do with it.
Yeah.
And we kind of keep coming back to that all the time. And it usually happens in the most inane way. For example, could be stood, I don't know, doing the ironing, and all of a sudden it's that spark of, oh, I know how to do and solve that problem now. I'm going to go and do that. So, and that's very much the stage 2 process. It's not like, oh, I've just had this idea. We have to sit with this idea in this stage 2. And we keep coming back to that. So even when we're developing on into stage 3 and trying to do that work, it might be that we keep coming back to that. What is that initial thing? Because we can go off on tangents. And then sort of developing more in stage 4, stage 5. But having to keep coming back, ruminating all the time. I am somebody who has, obviously we all now have mobile phones and we have them by the side of the bed. It's not uncommon for me to wake in the night and do a voice note and record something down, because, like I say, they come at the strangest of times, and then it's there for me to go back to.
In the case of that sort of spark of inspiration, was there ever a moment, a specific moment you remember where, when you realise from about 8 that, okay, this is it, this is what I want to do? Was there any specific moment where you remember, kind of, or is it one of the things where you think it's been around for as long as you can remember?
Music was always there, but what really made me decide at the age of 8? This is going to sound so big-headed. I was at school. There was a concert that happened in an evening down at our village hall, and the church had actually got a choir, which is unusual for a choir to be there, but their kind of lead chorister sang a solo, and I remember it was once in Royal David City, and I sat listening to it going, I can sing it better than that. Like I said, I know it sounds really big-headed, but it was something in me that sort of said, I'm sort of, I guess even as an 8-year-old, aware of emotions at that stage and what somebody's performance maybe lacked because they weren't so in tune with that.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing is music is all about emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how we communicate. And I spend so much of my time having to say, right, now, what are we communicating? What's the overall feel of this? How are we going to put this in? Particularly as with singing, there isn't a mechanism in the larynx that we can just switch and go, I'm going to put this emotion into my voice. There have been so many MRIs and endoscopies done that show we can't do that. We actually have to feel the emotion in ourselves in order for that emotion to actually come out into our voice.
Yeah.
And so often I have to take my students into a place where they are feeling that emotion in order to get a genuine performance.
Interesting. So obviously, now that we've covered the broad strokes, would you like to kind of now attack this and sort of looking at it specifically, a deep dive on each one, sort of the history and everything with that? So I think we'll go in the order at which you presented them. So first of all, you as a vocalist.
Yes.
So in terms of early, obviously from that bounce point of, okay, I want to get into music, that sort of thing.
Yes.
What are the early days of that, and how does that kind of develop? Because obviously this is this chronologically, as you were saying, this comes kind of before heavily the second two have come in. There was sort of a pre-parent.
There was very much. So my sort of education starts at 8. So from that point, there was then an opportunity for me to audition for a bigger choir, for a huge performance that was happening in Somerset, in fact. And although it was opened from 8 beyond, at 8 I was actually one of the very youngest to do that, and I was the only person from my school who got through that audition process. So that's a very early start of going through what is the audition process, and then working with an eminent conductor and learning that music and being able to perform in a big environment in front of thousands. And then it sort of just went along, pressured. I mean, I was in a recorder group where I was a lead descant soloist. And then at 11, I started secondary school. And back then, there was much more funding in county music. We call them music hubs now, where instruments are loaned out and tuition at that time was free. Now there's a contribution to it. But I actually then started playing the oboe. And so I got to go play in orchestras and wind bands and all that kind of thing. And this amazing teacher called Jeff Gordon, and I'm going to be seeing him in a few weeks, actually. He had looked at the fact that I had done this performance as an 8-year-old. And he knew I was in the choir and very, very active musically, and asked me if I wanted to do competitions. And so at 11, there was a big sort of music festival environment at that stage. And I actually went and started doing the competition circuit. And that sort of mulled along for a bit. And then at 14, I started formal training, which back then, if you wanted to do singing, it was classical singing. There was no musical theatre. There was no CCM is what we call it. So that's contemporary commercial music, which I'll explain a little bit more in a bit.
Yeah.
And went down the whole music grades and what have you, and then auditioning for conservatoire and going that route into it. But it meant that I ended up dropping oboe, because when we audition for our higher studies, you have to have keyboard as your first or your second instrument. So because I was primarily going as a singer, piano had to be my second. And so I had to audition with that, and let it go in a way. But I chose between the oboe, which is lovely, but singing is so tied up with who we are. If you think that we're born and the earliest thing that we learn to do is to cry out for help, we are vocal right from the start. And it's part of our identity, is the human voice. And it's one that is continually changing as our bodies change through the aging process, that to master it fully, I don't think is probably possible, because just as something gets settled, it moves on again. Yeah. And so for me, it's that constant learning process. And I love that.
So you obviously spoke about a band at the start as well, and
yes.
that sort of thing. Where have you saw your favourite areas as far as a sort of a vocalist? Where have they been?
It's not usual for a classical singer to go down that route, and at the same time have worked in lots of bands as well, or duets. I guess if I'd have had my time over again, I may not have gone down a classical route. I may have gone down a musical theatre route. But at the time, this subject called performing arts was really quite a new thing. It was a bit like computer science. Oh, it's not going to take off. And obviously it's huge now. But I like the classical stuff. You know, there are 600 years of wonderful vocal music out there. I knew I never wanted to do opera. I knew at the time, by the time I was 16, doing opera as a whole was not my thing. Doesn't mean to say I can't sing operatic arias. I can, and I've used them within my repertoire, but I didn't ever see myself as just wanting to solely do that. There is so much wonderful vocal music, Italian sort of 17th, 18th century music. We look at Lieder out of Germany, Lied being song. There's some wonderful French song, which is sort of late 19th century into early 20th century, which is fantastic. And we forget we have wonderful, wonderful English song. And that's something that I've specialised in, is going down more the Britten and the Vaughan Williams and Elgar, and my favourite as well. We've got Armstrong Gibbs, Quilter, those sorts of people who don't normally get performed. And I've loved doing that. But then I've had the bands because, you know, I'm 53, 70s happened, but what are my informative years of music is very much the 80s. Why wouldn't I want to sing that? I mean, it's so varied, from this electronic synth pop all the way through to heavy metal within one decade. And I've been able to explore that. And certainly now in the Funk and Soul Band, yes, we've got a lot that some of it comes out of the 60s and 70s, very much Motown. But we look at things like coming through into the 80s. That was very natural for me to want to actually be able to explore. And being able to sing with a horn section to sort of that real huge band environment is fantastic. Yeah.
You mentioned something earlier, which I was wondering if you'd expand on, because I don't even. I imagine I could hazard a guess of what you meant by it, but it was the CCM.
The
thing?
CCM, the contemporary commercial music. Okay, so this is a name that has come from America. It was developed in the early 90s. By the late 90s, we were using it more in the UK, and it's something that, outside of vocal tuition, most people don't know about. But it's basically this idea of amplification of the voice.
Right.
Now, this isn't saying that, for example, at the proms, we don't have microphones up for the singers, for example. Musical theatre, obviously, they will be mic'd up as well. But it's saying that there came a point when we had amplification of instruments, so that's electric guitars and basses and what have you, where the voice was competing over the top and needed amplification itself.
Yeah.
So really, realistically, what we are looking at is big band music onwards.
Right.
So it's anything that comes into that. So that can be jazz, it could be reggae, pop, heavy metal, doesn't really matter. All of that gets covered under CCM. So when we talk about teaching it, we talk about the three areas: classical, based on classical technique, obviously, going down classical music, although that in itself is starting to get musical theatre within it. So you might perform, if you did an exam, have one piece that was musical theatre. We have musical theatre, where there is an expectation to perform probably a lot more physically with your body. Obviously, there needs to be the stamina to be able to do dance as well. And then the third one is the CCM, which is everything else. And we have some great examination boards as well that can be used by tutors to be able to further their students.
So just to be clear, are we talking sort of everything most audiences modern music would consider that comes under that, would you say?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Because I thought that's what it was,
yes,
but just to be clear.
Because it is that amplification of keyboards and guitars and everything that would come under that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even digital now, where it's processes tracks.
Absolutely.
It's still the same thing.
It's the same thing. You still need to have a microphone to go over the top. We still need to mic up the voice, but it is clear and distinct to musical theatre and classical.
No, it's interesting. It's interesting to know this because, of course, that's what I'm saying. I'm not considering myself to even be particularly great at this point, but it is interesting to know when it's fully categorized where my area falls, and that
Yes.
sort of thing. Because I'm trying lately to understand these things a lot better.
Yeah.
So it's nice for me to know that, because at the time, oh yeah, because that's interesting. At the time of recording, I'm very, very heavily on work on this year's music for me, the second album and second EP. But the time this comes out, one, if not both of them, will have released.
Yes.
So that's it's a while away now. But no, I'm very much focusing on these things because I'm looking to record in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm needing to kind of understand this a bit more. So I've been looking at it and rehearsing here and there and finishing up with the lyrics and everything. So it's always nice to know the context of these things a bit.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, does everybody know what CCM means? No, I can turn to a classical musician and they wouldn't know what CCM was. But in terms of those of us who are affiliated to internationally renowned bodies for vocal tuition, we absolutely know what CCM is.
Yeah, it's primarily, that's the thing I was missing in my head. It's the fact how I now know definitively, because I would have obviously suspected this anyway, but now officially, in terms of recognised, it's not one size fits all. There are three very different lanes.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
That's what I understand, that it's and it's okay to have. The thing is, this is something I want to ask you. Something is, and this will actually transition us through to the second leg. Is that as a vocal teacher, would you say there is a voice that is two questions here. So one, is there truly sort of, I would imagine, just people who are just not meant for it, who you call tone deaf, who just can't do it, and people who can? And then beyond that, if there's people who've just got sort of a general, like a good foundation of a voice, is it something that is someone more suited to one of the three areas, or can it be moulded to kind of to suit one of the three, or is someone best for a particular category? Is that
okay? So let's answer that first question, and I do get asked this a lot because when people ask me what do I do, and I go, well, actually, I'm a singing teacher. I'm going to work. I'm a singing teacher, and it's like, oh, well, you couldn't teach me if you wouldn't want to, and all that kind of thing. I said earlier, it's the most natural thing in the world. It's the first thing that we do in order to be able to communicate, is use our voice. Mm-hmm. And unless somebody came with me with absolutely a letter from a medical professional that said, I'm tone deaf, or there was something physically wrong with the larynx, anybody can learn to sing.
So it is completely a turn of phrase and nothing else?
It is completely a turn of phrase. There is no truth in it whatsoever.
Wow.
What I have found from talking to a lot of people is usually something happens in childhood that makes people very self-conscious of their voice. And often this has been simply they've been told, for example, in a school production at junior school, can you just be a little bit quieter? Or that's lovely, but it's not in time with everything. And we're all learning at this stage, but that has been enough to rock that person's confidence with their voice.
That's enormous responsibility for whoever teaches. You know, that carries enormous weight.
It does. What anybody does as a teacher, there has to be this recognition that it can enormously impact on that child. These are our informative years. We're very good as mammals at making sure that our offspring are nurtured in the way that they need to be. So yes, we have to be very, very careful about how we come across and the things that we say, because that one thing I am seeing a lot of when people come into the studio.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I've been told. And it's not had any authority behind it, really. But it's something that has lasted a lifetime. They can be in their 60s and it's lasted a lifetime. Yeah. So there's no truth in it. As for what genre they go down, there are so many things that decide that. Yes, it could be the type of voice that they've got, but there has to be a desire to want to sing music, and it can be that somebody just really is taken with one particular kind of music or not. I have somebody who came to me having had a child and wanted to be able to sing with her own child at that point and have some confidence. But this was somebody who had done up to grade 7 classical.
Right.
And actually exploring their circumstances and their life and what they like to do recreationally, we've gone down a jazz route. And that has suited this singer much better, to the point where she is now performing as a jazz singer.
Interesting.
I will never force somebody. I like people to try a little bit of everything to see what fits. But there has to be this desire in a person to go down a particular route.
Yeah.
Yeah. My job is to just facilitate that.
So, what are usually? I imagine there's a few different areas of which you're focusing with people, as you've said from some of your stories there. Where do you where are you primarily when it comes to teaching? Is it more younger people? Is it older people? Where would you say?
It's so varied. I mean, yeah. So I have taught from, I don't like them too young, but 7 is about right. Any younger than that, it's difficult because singing is such a disciplined musical instrument. It's about how we hold our bodies, learning to breathe correctly, everything. And even being able to understand, I guess, the technique that I'm imparting as well. It's slightly different to other instruments, and this idea that somebody can be a prodigy at singing at the age of 14 is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because you can't be, because I know that the voice hasn't fully developed until you're into your 20s, so it just doesn't happen. We're still in fluctuation at this point. But currently I am 8 to 59. That in age range.
Oh, right.
So in my private practice, that's my age range. And I would say I see more adults than I do children. But that can change. I once was part of a theatre group. I was the musical director, and I did do one-to-one tuition as well. And that was with children. So it can vary as to what I'm doing. If it's with a theatre company, we're going to have a lot of young adults and less mature adults with it. So it can vary in age range.
Yeah.
And it should. If I had my way, everybody would be prescribed singing from an early age. I mean, I was fortunate enough to live in Switzerland, and the education system there is slightly different in that everybody up until at least 14 has to do singing.
Wow.
Has to do singing. We know, and research backs this up, that music is the thing to do that improves grades across the board, because it works very much on lateral and vertical brain function. But yes, up to the age of 14, everybody sang. Because there's no excuse. You can't leave your instrument at home.
Yeah.
It's one thing. It's free, guys. It's out there. Use your voice, But yes, everybody up to the age of 14, and then it kind of trickles off, because you might go into apprenticeship, or you might go to college and be academic, in which case you're still doing it there, but you might be going to a specialist college, whether that's nursing, tourism, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
where you wouldn't then be singing. And to say that they're singing, they're also not exactly examined, but tested on it as part of. So you imagine doing SATs now and having to also sing as part of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
And I do think, I mean, we're getting to a stage now where the penny is dropping on how important singing is for overall well-being.
Yeah.
If I can alight to a research that was done by Oxford University, they kind of nailed it down to 11 things that we get, 11 benefits we get from singing. And that's divided into 3 categories. There is the physical side. When we're breathing, we take over the autonomic systems of our circulation, so we can lower our heart rate down. We also know that we're strengthening our core muscles. These are things that we need in order to be able to walk, for example, and sit. So as the body's aging and things like osteoarthritis come on, we're able to better cope with that. But we also have like the mental welfare. Now, that is actually still physical. This is in terms of the hormones that are being released when we're doing it. We can also sort of look at that. Here's me losing my train of thought. In terms of the communal side, which is the third one. And that is actually being able to come together as a group, feeling part of a community. It can overcome things like loneliness, shared experience. We know that shared experience is really important for our mental welfare. So when we start putting all of these things together, you can understand why somebody like me goes, we should be socially prescribing it in order to help with a lot of physical conditions, a lot of mental health conditions, just general sort of as we become an aging population, dealing with these ideas of loneliness as well. It would be absolutely fantastic.
It does fascinate me. You're saying there how it's sort of the compulsory element in Switzerland, you were saying, but it's how it's been pushed and more valued as time goes on.
Yes.
It does really fascinate me to wonder about what difference it might make if, for example, boys are encouraged to sing longer, because
Absolutely.
I think there's a massive... I can see it. It's not just me as a boy. I think common sense, anyone could say that there is a certain level where you get to a certain age, and if there is an age for it, which I think there is. I think there's an age where it's fine, where like amongst boys, like, oh, it's okay, but that age is very, very young. Where I'd say around, it's got to not even be the end of primary school. It's got to be more around year 4, year 5. I would imagine, where it's any point past that, it's like, no, this is weird. Well, why are you doing this? So it would be really interesting to think of a future down the line where it's encouraged to do it longer, and that
where singing is normalised,
Yes.
actually, as an activity that we do for our overall well-being.
Yeah.
So it first started, it was the Sydney DeHaan Centre, which is now part of the University of Canterbury.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a programme called Singing for the Brain. And this was done for the elderly to keep their brains active. Because what we really know is that by keeping the brains active through singing, because we're having to, if we think back to the mental benefits, is we're processing all the time lots and lots of information. And that processing is keeping the brain active.
Yeah.
And so Singing for the Brain came about. And this is an international programme. So it's used all over the world. It's now being adapted for different areas. So for people, for example, with breathing problems, emphysema, those kinds of conditions, we have been doing it and reaching out. In actual fact, it's English National Opera have been doing it for people with long COVID. I've done it. I wrote a programme for when we had the Alzheimer's Society here in Sunderland. I did it for early onset dementia, because we're using it now in dementia. But early onset is maybe an area that was under supported, and that's people under the age of 65 getting dementia, and trying to then make a program that was good for them. But we're starting to see it trickle through now as being something that is usable on a medical level, and distinct to, for example, music therapy. That's something different. This is about using singing as a wellness tool.
In terms of you teaching people vocally, before we kind of move on to the third leg, what would you say is your defining story of teaching someone vocally, and what would you say you're proud of, like potentially, or maybe a different emotion? What is the defining story, would you say, in all the years that you've taught people?
You see, I don't know that I could give a defining one, but when I get given thank you cards, or somebody sends a message to say how well they've done in a performance and that they couldn't have done it if I hadn't have supported them, to me that is like, it's that self-validation of I'm doing good.
Yeah.
You know, and I think everybody needs some form of self-validation. But at the same time, I also recognise you did it. You did that. That wasn't me. When people come in the early stages, and we're sort of setting out on a journey together, I always say, right, what you're doing is bringing me an empty toolbox. Bring that empty toolbox in. What I'm going to do is give you those tools and tell you how to use them. And then you're going to go away with a full toolbox. But you're doing it, not me. Because it's not about me doing the work, it's about them putting in the work. Yeah. That's probably the definitive story, is how do I approach it? It's that empty toolbox. I'll help them find those tools and use them.
So, with the third leg, and when it comes to composing what you were saying and making music from scratch, with clients, how do you think things change? Like, do you because what you were saying earlier, when you're saying, okay, when you do something that's on my terms, it's very free, and I'm in charge of my own destiny in that way. You were saying. I was going to chime in, but I forgot to. When you were talking about making music for clients, I imagine there's you're saying it's a bit more constraining, how you've obviously got to go to a certain way of doing it. Do you find there's a bit of pressure there where you don't feel you can truly express as you would if you were in charge?
That's very interesting. I guess it depends on what I'm composing for, but it's like anything. You're given a brief, and do you have the skills to fulfill that brief?
Yeah. Now,
that client may be looking for something. I like doing field recordings. So for anybody who doesn't know what a field recording is anything outside of a studio, essentially. Whether that be your little Zoom, which I have done on Creswell Beach in the middle of the night, recording waves as they come in on high tide. But that might be something that they have explored. They're usually coming because they know what your background is, what the kinds of things that you like, and I've provided samples of what I can do.
Yeah.
And so in terms of, do I have that constraint? No, because usually that's something that they expect. But the constraints are the amount of time, what's got to go with it, that kind of thing. Yeah.
What would you say in terms of what it is you've done with work for other clients? What is probably the most challenging thing that you've ever had to do?
The most challenging. It's been maybe getting ideas together for a particular piece, but until I have been provided with information from the client over things like the length of time and what have you, not being able to move with it and being in a holding position. And that coming very close to a deadline. But because I've got all these things sorted or ideas and they're already stored, then it's been able to essentially springboard off to create that finished piece. But it's always deadlines. It's always deadlines. Or it will be that you can create something that hits the brief and then the client go, but I don't like that. And that is like, but you said you wanted this, this, this and this, and this piece does all of that. And there'll be one element that maybe they don't like.
Is that usually easy to change, or is that integral?
I can change it. There may be a discussion around it. I can think of one piece. There was a discussion around it and I had met it. But I was able to essentially support why I felt it needed to be the way that I had done it. And upon its being used, it was then uploaded. And people actually, of all the pieces I had done, liked that one the best. So sometimes it's like, and you go through this deflated moment of, oh, they're not actually really happy with that. They're going to use it anyway and they don't want it changed. But, if they're not happy, and there's this kind of people-pleasing thing in me that goes, so let me change it. I'll change it. And they'll go, no, it's fine. You've done it. It's fine. And then you kind of put it onto a platform and people go, I really like that. And so all this anxiety that I've had in myself, and anybody who works in the creative arts industry will say we all have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
That kind of creeps up and goes, oh, maybe I don't know what I'm doing and I'm not good enough and all these negative thoughts. And then it's like, oh, I really like that. so yes, that has been, that's quite a learning curve. Sometimes you just have to go with your gut instinct and go, yeah, no, I do know what I'm doing.
Lastly, as a topic, should we talk about musical theatre for a little bit?
Okay, yes.
So what, explain kind of what your history's been with that in terms of sort of group projects and that sort of thing. What are your fond memories of doing that sort of work?
I got to do Sister Act. I played Mary Martin de Tour, and I actually had created probably one of the best character backgrounds, because we forget with musical theatre that it's not just about singing and dance. It's about portraying a real character. So, earlier I said, oh, not into opera, but musical theatre, that's a different matter. I can get into the characters and I just feel it's more relatable to people. And obviously we have a huge popularity, particularly here in Sunderland, for musical theatre. Yes, being able to embody a character that's not me. May have elements of me in it, but yeah, it's so much fun to play somebody else. And I played it completely with a French accent and get to be a bit sassy in it, and that's fun. So it's about being able to step into somebody else's shoes for a bit, and that's fun. And doing the dancing bit, that's fun, and all the acting. Hate learning lines. I will say that. Anybody who knows Sister Act, my character at one point actually is speaking in Spanish. So I had to learn those lines as well. But musical theatre is absolutely immense. All the lights, all the things that you can do with it. But then equally, having worked as an MD doing musical theatre, that's fun to get people to sing in character and go, right, that's lovely what you're singing. Not a problem with it. But would your character sing like that?
how would they sort of put intonation into some of these words? How would it come across? Do you necessarily want to sing that bit, or do you want to use speak sing? I'll explain. Speak sing is a form of not really singing. You're saying it, but you're saying it to pitch.
Yeah.
So you're speaking to pitch. That's speak sing. And doing that is just so much fun. And getting them out and seeing these characters on stage. Yeah.
What would you say is your... before we go more general, what would you say is your favourite musical, whether you've performed in it or not?
My favourite was Matilda. I was a musical director
Banger.
for that. And I got to work with young people, learning those songs sort of individually and being there, running around. I was in charge of the mics as well backstage. So I was stage managing all the mics. And that was an awful lot of fun.
Favourite song?
My favourite song from Matilda is My House.
Oh.
Which Miss Honey sings.
Simple but effective.
It's got a lot of emotion in that song.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd honestly, I'd say there's a bunch of them that I'd say, obviously, the more like iconic ones that I would say one of those is probably my favourite. But regardless of those, I still always have to have an honourable mention to the alphabet one. I think
Yes, that's
genius.
Lovely. That
I
is
think
brilliant.
It's genius.
That's brilliant. When I Grow Up, that's a great song.
Yeah.
Particularly because you get these adult characters that come in singing about their adulthood and how they see life now, but and revolting children.
Oh, yes.
Obviously.
I always liked the Hammer when I was younger.
But yeah, if I had to put one, it's Miss Honey singing My House.
Yeah.
You know, in that song it encapsulates so much about what she's been through, but also who she is as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of resonates with me the most.
An even bigger question. What's your favourite piece of music of all time?
I have been asked this. If we pin it down... let's pin it down to vocal music.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to say what is my most favourite song, it's a setting of Lord Alfred Tennyson, Now Sleeps a Crimson Petal. And it just takes two verses from this particular poem and it's set by Roger Quilter, and it is just the most... There are pieces of music which are very out there and we're talking to everybody, you know, and communicating huge emotions. And this is about pulling somebody into your space. So a singer pulls you in and really quite intense internal emotions that we have of love. And yeah, that's my favourite piece of all time.
Wow.
And it's a piece that I do perform, yes.
Yeah, I'd imagine you would if it was your favourite.
Because it's just so simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's so simple, yet so effective.
In terms of these three legs that we've discussed and a few tangents here and there, what would your key bit of advice to anyone wishing to go into them would be? So in terms of doing vocal work solo or in a group, doing teaching vocally to anyone who's in their early days of doing that, any advice for them, and then also for working with clients in terms of making music from scratch, what would your three pieces of advice be to those three areas?
In terms of singing and wanting to sing, find somebody who is very knowledgeable about vocal tuition. They will bring the best out. They should be affiliated to a recognised body if they know what they're talking about. And they should know about singing anatomy and everything that we use and have been trained as well, and have those qualifications. So get that. And people singing in groups, just sing, sing, sing. Just everybody should be singing. In terms of wanting to be an educator, I will say this: you do not have to be the best singer to work with, whether that's individuals or with groups. You just need to know about technique, about vocal technique, so that you can understand what people are doing when they are singing back to you, so that when you hear something that's off, why it's off. But it's about being prepared to put yourself out there, because actually you stand up in front of an awful lot of people. And so you have to be comfortable being an orator, that kind of thing. In terms of composing, find your voice. You're not going to satisfy everybody. What you compose will not be everybody's cup of tea. But try and find what it is that is your voice. What are the tools that make up your voice? So if, for example, you like field recording, or you like doing Foley and mucking around with that and making tracks out of it, do that. Go down that route. It doesn't have to be constrained to what we think of as typical Western music. We don't have to do that at all. Just find your own voice. I mean, it's quite funny that if you listen to some music, I can never say her name, and I'm useless with names anyway. That's not my thing. But there is a fantastic Scandinavian composer who composes a lot for film. If you hear a cello as the main instrument in it, I can pretty much 99.9% of the time say it's her, because she was a cellist, and so she's taking what she knows into composing, and she's using that as her identity. You know, find your voice, find out what that is, and that is about playing around. Yeah.
Thank you. Right, we usually have a game at the end of these. Are we ready?
I have been warned. Yes.
Yes, and for a change, actually, you've been involved in this particular one.
I have been involved. Yes. So I've got to try and kind of keep a straight face.
Yep.
And you may want me to expand on things afterwards. Yep. So, yes.
So the concept of this game is essentially there have been a truth and a lie. I imagine 10. It's 10 rounds. So there's 10 rounds. One truth and one lie about Fee's career here. And it's actually me primarily playing this one. I need to guess what the truth and the lie is. So, yeah, let's get through. We have lies of a singing teacher. Let's go. Here we go. There is 10 prompts. The prompt is either a lie or a truth. Can you guess which one? Let's do it. Number 1. She encourages use of fidget toys as a part of her studio practice. Oh, okay. So I've got to guess if that's a true lie. Okay. I'm going to say yes, that's true.
It is true, and not necessarily because I'm an inclusive practice and have people who are neurodivergent, but actually there are things that we can do with fidget toys. So we talk about using a solar plexus for accents when we need that extra bit of pff from our breath. And actually I have a toy where you can squeeze it. And it clicks together in quite a nice, satisfying way, and then unpops. And if you do that at the same time, because your brain is actively using that fidget toy, it helps here.
Wow, that's great. Right, number 2. She often takes her ukulele into her singing lessons to teach her students.
See, I'm a multi-instrumentalist.
I think you've said that to throw me. I'm going to say it's a lie.
You're quite right. However...
If you hadn't said that, I think I'd have gone with truth.
There is a song from Lava, and it obviously is accompanied by a ukulele. And I have thought of doing that with some of my students and actually accompanying them with the ukulele, but I haven't actually taken it in yet.
Great. Number 3. It is not compulsory for her singing students to learn how to read music. I'm gonna guess you don't demand them to know how to read it.
This is a bit of a weird one. Obviously, sort of outside of the studio, when I'm working with community groups, I would just provide them with the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
However, as soon as somebody steps into my studio, whether they can read music or not, they will be given music.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason for that is there is so much information held within music. You don't necessarily need to know, oh, well, that's a series of semiquavers that ends with a trill. People don't need to know that. Mine comes down to a basic. Is it in 2, 3, 4 count? That's a time signature. If it goes up a stave, then we know the pitch is higher. If it's going down, it's lower. It's looking for, though, things that are patterns or noticing where there is a breaking singing in that line for breathing purposes and getting that foundation right. And also whether there are any patterns that we can see between, say, the melody line and the accompaniment underneath, because that's important. That can dictate whether we have to be very much working together with it or whether it's something that's working separately to it. So yes, if you come into my studio, you're going to have music. That seems really daunting, but I explain through it. Yeah.
Number 4. She plays the piano, but her left hand and right hand aren't necessarily talking to each other. True?
It is true. Yeah, so I have something called functional neurological disorder in my right arm and shoulder, and this means that it doesn't necessarily react to what is happening with my left hand. So I'm very fortunate that none of my students ever have turned around and said, well, I got lost because you weren't playing what I wanted you to play. They will just carry on, because sometimes I will put a bomb note in there, yeah. But they don't necessarily talk to each other because this hand decides not to react, yeah.
Next one. She has a clock that she put on top of her piano, yet she considers time a mere construct. I'm going to say true.
It's true. I actually, between my students, have to allow sometimes. So there are times when I am literally a half hour, one after the other. But there are also times when I actually put in a little bit of a break, just so that I can catch up, because I'm somebody who gets to the point that I want to get to.
Yeah.
And then it's the end of the lesson rather than, right, that's it, out you go. Mm-hmm. So I put my students first, and yeah, time is a mere construct, isn't it? Particularly when it's the last one of the day. I mean, it can be quite late when I'm leaving the studio, yeah.
Right, number 6. Teaching students about different microphones and how to use them is important within their practice. No.
It's true. If they actually want to be able to use microphones, so they're going down the CCM route. Often I've had, say, students who've come from college and they have no idea of how to use mic.
Right.
They don't know how a microphone works. So they could be shoved an industry standard of a Shaw Beta 58 and not know where the sound is going to be picked up on it, and therefore not know how best to cope with things like moving the microphone in and out or pops over the top, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, if they want to use a microphone, they need to be taught how to use a microphone.
Number 7. She would never support a student doing extreme vocals. I don't even know what that means. So I'm going to say true because I want you to explain that.
Okay. I would. So, yes, it was a lie. I absolutely, completely and utterly do support extreme vocals.
I don't know what they are.
So, extreme vocals are, can you imagine, we have very grungy, dirty vocals or a lot of screams that come out within the heavier side of heavy metal.
Right.
And it's not healthy for the larynx. But what I do is minimise the amount of damage because singers who do that do find that they get a lot of vocal fatigue. So it's about how to make that as safe as possible. So I do actually teach extreme vocals.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's not many of us who have the courage to do that. Would I want to do it for my own voice? Absolutely not. But I do have one particular student at the moment who is a professional and his range is phenomenal. And he is capable. I mean, if I had to liken him to a singer, Justin Hawkins probably from The Darkness. He has use of his mix, his chest, his head voice, his falsetto within that. But he can push notes out in the chest voice that he shouldn't be able to. Yeah.
Number 8. She plays mind games on her students. Yes.
Yeah, I absolutely do. So it goes back to this fidget toy. There are lots of things that we do in order, and it goes back to, vocal communication. It's the first thing that we do as a baby. Our brains and our voices are completely intertwined. And so I can get students to play games that help them with their singing, yes. So this could be as simple as a legato line. So that's singing smoothly and having a piece of paper and getting them to draw circles. And because it's a continuous circle, it's a continuous line. So, yeah, I'm always playing mind games. Totally, yeah.
Number 9. She only teaches music from British composers. That'll be a complete lie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, absolutely anything is on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, anybody.
And
I may have a penchant for British composers, but no, it's anything.
And the last one, 10. She chooses warm-up songs that her students deem questionable but come to respect the technical difficulty. Yes.
Do you want to know what their warm-up song is at the moment?
What?
The Smurfs song. So that Father Abraham, so this isn't the theme song to the Smurfs, but there was somebody called Father Abraham, and it was a hit back in the 70s, in 1977. And it's, from a technical point of view, we have a call and answer idea happening in the verse, and then it has harmonies that happen in the chorus. But the chorus is, the first little phrase of it is whistling. Now, my students often are taught straw technique, what we call semi-occluded vocal tract training, SOVT for short. So we use straws. If they're using the straw, they should be able to whistle. So they've got to whistle in it. And then la, 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 la. It's all about the main articulator of our sound that comes out of our mouth. Vocal folds dictate the pitch and some strength, but in actual fact, it's the tongue that creates the actual sound, whether that's consonants, vowels, that kind of thing. So yes, it is. They question it and go, well, this is a ridiculous song, but then they learn to appreciate that it's far more technical than they thought. And there's some benefit, but we always have fun with it. It should be fun too.
Cool.
Yeah.
A bonus round. Okay.
Oh my! I don't know about there.
There has been a couple of occasions where she has had to tell people they can't sing. True.
No, I would never.
Oh!
Like I say, unless somebody comes to me, I would never turn around and say you can't. What I do is manage expectations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what they are. Everybody is going to get something out of learning to sing, but they might not necessarily then go on to be the next big thing. Yeah.
Finn! Right.
We are at
Okay,
the end.
you enjoyed that?
I did. I mean, I feel like I've done an awful lot of talking.
No,
it's
honestly been wonderful. It's an insight from that kind of world, which I'd say at least not in a skill capacity, but in an interest capacity, very much kind of all areas of creativity. I like to keep tabs on it all, have an interest for all, but in this particular area, in this world, I knew very little.
I think generally within the creative arts industry that when you work as a freelancer, I think the thing that comes across is you juggle lots of different areas at the same time. You have to spin lots of plates because you're trying to make a living out of it.
But it's been very, very insightful, and thank you very much, because I've honestly really enjoyed it. So
thank you for having me.
No, it's been wonderful having you on. So that is just about it for today. We hope you've all enjoyed it at home. We hope you're doing all right at home, and we will see you next time on the BWN podcast. For myself and Fee, goodbye.
Bye.